understand me. I will kill you. Looking for me, asshole.
Sorry, buddy, not your day.
If we breach the doors together, we will have no problems neutralizing Sightjar.
Hubris, Chief. Hubris.
It's gonna be a blood orgy.
Video games come in all shapes and flavors. Some games are basically a casino with input maps. Some of them appeal to the lowest common denominator, brash, loud, colorful. Some games go their own way, somewhat anti-establishment and off the well-worn trail, to the point where they may slip under the radar. This is your reminder to play that which gave chase. Then there are some games where the developers watched the Bourne movies a few too many times, and it really shows. I'm going to finally review Splinter Cell 5, and I'm going to do it fairly. Wish me luck.
Good luck.
Hey, thanks. Some people really love Conviction. Some people swear that it ruined the franchise. I don't know about that, but I do know that at one time we had a wonderful thing in the Splinter Cell franchise. We don't have that anymore. I've seen a lot of people post that this is their favorite Splinter Cell, or the one that got them into the franchise in the first place. Now, in case you're wondering if I'm just gonna blankly hate all over this game because that's what you're supposed to do, I'll tell you out front. The gameplay is buttery smooth, the graphics are still great, and the sound design is excellent. That said, I certainly have some unpleasant thoughts as well. Anyway, let's see if this is the point where Splinter Cell lost its conviction. Hey, come on, now you have to hit the like button. I saved that line for 3 years.
3 days!
Before anything else, I want to discuss a happy topic. If there's one thing I think we can all agree on, possibly, is that Michael Ironside's final performance as Sam Fisher was like camping. It was intense. This was Ironside's 5th portrayal of the beloved lead character, and he definitely put in a shift. If all you ever knew of this guy's work was Splinter Cell, you'd be surprised at how good he is as a villain, as a bit of a madman. He was amazing as Richter in Total Recall, of course. He had a small part as a very convincing mean drunk in Major Payne, and he was terrifying as Daryl Revick in Scanners. Everyone always talks about the head explosion scene, but go watch the psych eval part if you want to see Ironside at his best. Now, you may not like the writing in Splinter Cell Conviction, I don't, but you cannot deny that Michael did a great job in depicting Sam as an angry, violent dude, barely being held back at the best of times. It's in his timbre. He still does the smooth, cool, professional thing, but then he'll growl like an animal when he's being rough with someone, and you'll go, oh, this fella means business?
We'll get to you.
You don't want to know about Megiddo, you want to know about your daughter.
You don't get to talk about my daughter.
Obviously, in a game, gameplay is usually king, and that's absolutely true for Splinter Cell, but when you have a strong lead character, it really helps to keep players invested in the gameplay loop fanning out around them. Ironside's voice was not only central to this concept, but he changed and helped to rewrite significant portions of dialogue for the first Splinter Cell. He's a major reason why so many of us loved the old games. He didn't just take his check and fall asleep in the booth, which is more than I can say for certain people.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt!
So, to hear him do his thing in Conviction is pretty great. That said, it's a shame that such a strong performance was in a plot like this.
You're gonna get yourself killed. No! I'm gonna get her out! Jenny! Jenny!
It's too late. There's nothing you can do for her.
Right off rip, I will say that there's a moment in downtown DC when a car explodes. There's an NPC reaching towards someone he loves, burning in that car. A few people hold this poor guy back as he wails and screams. It kinda got me choked up, honestly. It's a powerful moment and a real standout. The rest of the story, stinks.
Goddamn son of a bitch!
In short, the story in Conviction just doesn't feel like Splinter Cell. It has shades of the usual geopolitical Tom Clancy thriller stuff, albeit dipped in Jack Bauer sauce. It has Sam Fisher, Anna Grimm's daughter, and even Irving Lambert is relevant to the plot, despite coming down with a mild case of death. But despite these familiar traits, the whole thing feels like it's been melted and poured into this big swirling homogeneous vat of boring, samey Ubisoft games from that era. At the time, there was this blend of Rainbow, Ghost, Assassin's, Recon, Six Creed, TV show writing, bland, forgettable protagonists, and a big bang of push A to win creeping into everything. I love Ghost Recon games from way back, but Ghost Recon Future Soldier is one of the only video games I've ever quit playing out of pure boredom. Quick, tell me a single character or mission from that game. Go ahead. Unfortunately, Splinter Cell wasn't immune to this charm. In Conviction, Sam Fisher is off the grid-ish, but why? In Splinter Cell 4, known as Double Agent, he lost his daughter, Sarah, to a drunk driver. Now, instead of attempting to heal spiritually, he went undercover inside of a criminal organization known as the JBA, hence the title Double Agent. At the end of the game, Sam was forced to execute Irving Lambert, his best friend and boss. Eventually, he goes on the run. Yeah, the bridge between the gap of Splinter Cell 4 and 5 must have been a creative dumpster fire. Now, I have no insider knowledge or anything, I'm basing that purely off the state of the games themselves. Double Agent had two versions, version 1 and version 2. I have a big 2-hour review on my channel detailing both games, but to sum it up, version 1 is considered canon. Lambert officially perishes at the hands of Sam Fisher to maintain his cover with the JBA. You know, a feature I really liked in that game was the dynamic of playing both sides, NSA and JBA. Based on choices you make and your trust level, you'll get one of 3 endings. 1, Sam's trust with the NSA is nil, and he's captured and charged with aiding and abetting the JBA. He breaks out of captivity and vanishes. Ending 2 is similar, only Sam escapes the NYPD on the spot during their arrest. The third ending, which is canon, sees Fisher escape the SWAT team in the final level, only to then hitch a ride on a Coast Guard boat in New York Harbor. The boat has the last remaining JBA members and a bomb on board. Sam cleans them up and jumps from the boat just as it blows up. Very dramatic. Then he escapes into the night. This has always confused me how everything ties to Conviction Splinter Cell 5. You see, if you save 2 out of 3 big characters and your trust with the NSA is high, why do you have to run from them? Wouldn't Fisher's story hold up, his actions recorded and vindicated? Well, here's where things get messy. Version 2 of Double Agent, the last generation version, PS2, GameCube, Wii, etc., is considered non-canon, but it had a character named Lawrence Williams, assistant director at the NSA and director of operations at Third Echelon. Third Echelon is Splinter's fictional, shadowy signal intelligence group that Fisher and Lambert worked for. At the end of version 2, Sam takes down the JBA, he defuses nukes, etc., saves the day, right? But another Splinter Cell agent is sent in to take out the last remaining JBA member, Enrica, and presumably Sam Fisher. Now Fisher must have figured this out, so he lies in wait before ambushing this other agent, giving him a big new smile on his neck. Sam cuts out his little subdermal transmitter before going off the grid. Sam tells this version of the story to A.D. Williams in flashback style over a payphone before telling him off and disappearing at the end of the game. Whew, and before anyone says it, I don't want to hear about novels. If they even make reference, I'm not sure. I'm not going to excuse sloppy writing because books exist to pick up the slack. No. As far as the games go, was Williams corrupt? Did he set Fisher up? Did he send that agent to take him out? I mean, I assume so, but why? What did Williams want? What would he have gained? Is it money from the Panama bank job in Chaos Theory? Did Williams secretly want to be Lambert's BFF? And even if this was explained, version 2 is non-canon. So, officially, canonically, Sam Fisher is just kind of on the run and off the grid at the start of Splinter Cell Conviction. Not in some dingy apartment, but having a nice espresso while dressed like Matt Damon.
Matt Damon!
I don't know, man. Conviction has this bad taste in continuity. Like, yeah, some shit happened before this, but ooh, what's that? Never mind, gunfire. But let's talk about Vic real quick. Hey, that was a flow. There are a few of these never before seen but oh so important new characters. At the very start of the game, we hear Victor Cost talking about Sam. He's basically the game's narrator. Victor is being held captive by Black Arrow, a corrupt PMC working with Tom Reed, the game's big bad. Vic leads the player through the story in a flashback style. How convenient. Look, I'm not gonna mince words. I can't stand this character. He's supposed to be Sam's best buddy from the old days, both Navy SEALs in the past. They're super tight, they trust each other no matter what, brother, and yada yada yada. Victor helps Sam throughout the game, and at the very end, Sam sets off an explosion and goes in to rescue his old mate, which we never see. And hey, if you like Vic, it's okay that we disagree. It's just, to me, cheesy how Ubisoft made Anna Grimm's daughter Dear Sweet Grimm of all people, this untrustworthy ice queen all of a sudden, and then introduced this arbitrary guy, Vic, as a counter to her character. Sam doesn't trust Grimm now, but needs what she has, whereas Sam trusts Vic implicitly, his rock in the storm as it were. It's such a thinly veiled narrator character with this puddle-deep backstory, despite the illusion of this long storied friendship. So back to the market. Sam gets a little earpiece, and who should be on the other end but Anna Grimm's daughter. Now, you may be fooled into thinking, Sam and Grimm on comms, just like old times, and the game even has a line like this.
It's like the old days, huh, Grimm?
But no, don't fall for this game's tricks. This is nothing like the old days. So, we talked a bit about Angry Man Sam, but he still feels mostly like Fisher, again in part thanks to Michael Ironside's performance. Grimm is, thankfully, still voiced by Claudia Besso, the definitive voice of Grimm, and she does her absolute best here with what she's given. It's not her fault. But forgive me, what even is Grimm in Splinter Cell Conviction? So, Victor Cost is some random new character, fine, whatever. But this is Grimm, and she has some weirdly crowbarred tood now. I just don't get this. Grimm was a rockstar programmer, a computer scientist that was recruited by Lambert into Third Echelon at the start of the company. She's been one of Sam's support staff since the very first game, always helping us get through a trap in a level or offering another perspective on the story, usually from the tech side of the plot. The interplay between Sam and Grimm was always more of a father and surrogate daughter. She's a bookish professor professional, but still cares for Sam and likes to bust his balls for being old and out of touch, But in Conviction, Grim is some badass quadruple agent field operative, highly proficient with firearms, and portrayed as lethal and hard all of a sudden. Why? She could have been trapped by Reed, used as bait to lure Sam out of hiding. It doesn't make her a weak female character, and I don't care if a lady in a video game is tough or whatever, but this is Grim. She's a data analyst and a programmer, not a trained operative. Though, I have to admit, I really want to empty my testicles on those chesticles, baby, please. This should have been a new character, but good old Maxime Bellon wanted to tap the nostalgia well to bait fans, and this whole "look at how tough I am, guys" thing feels so forced and bizarre. Speaking of bizarre, look at little Sarah's character model. Holy shit. So yeah, Sarah, she's back. UB tried using the death of Sarah Fisher, Sam's daughter, to weave some pathos into Splinter Cell 4, and then they double dipped for Conviction. In the tutorial on Light and Shadow, Sam comforts his girl when she's scared of the dark. And apparently Sam has looked 52 his entire life. Sarah is this game's carrot, something for Sam to chase after. It's how Grim manipulates Sam into returning. She tells Sam, "Surprise retcon, Sarah is alive after all. He just has to do a thing or two and all will be revealed." This leads us to Andre Coben's mansion. Coben is another new character that serves as a means of explaining the Sarah Fisher retcon. Now, if I were writing Splinter Cell, I'd have the third echelon team traveling the world, stopping bad guys and so forth. As a big fan, I never felt like I needed a super personal, gritty story. But to be fair, it was the style at the time, and even though it's all corny and contrived, my complaining won't change that. That said, I'm gonna complain. I should say, I have a soft spot for Coben, mostly because he's voiced by Elias Toufexis, the voice of Adam Jensen. Because I'm such a mark for Human Revolution, I can almost overlook the overly edgy dialogue.
And one more thing. Your daughter, your precious little daughter, she was a fucking whore!
Come on!
Why did he have to say that? I'm not offended by the language, it's not that. You could argue that this dude is a criminal lunatic. He's afraid of Fisher because Fisher's here to get him. Maybe he's done a few key bumps recently. Whatever, I get that. But A, this is dialogue that sounds like it was written by a waif trying to sound hard. B, why is he intentionally angering this dude that he knows could rip him limb from limb? I get that Coben has armed security. I get that he feels protected by the corrupt third echelon and or Black Arrow. But here and now, in this moment, making a dude like Sam Fisher even angrier by taunting the daughter he thinks is dead is simply stupid. It's a cheap attempt by a writer to rile the player up for the big moment when Fisher interrogates Coben. We're all supposed to go, "Ooh, you're gonna get it now, mister." But if Sam thinks this is the guy that ended his kid's life in the first place, do we really need the edgy tough guy dialogue to accompany that? Anyway, there's a lot of that stuff in this game. A whole lot. Every bad guy character is such an archetypical dickhead, just blasting civilians with disregard, slick back hair, ponytails, talking bad guy trash. It's so stupid. This is no more evident than with the main baddie, Tom Reed. I tell you what, let's talk about Reed and then wrap up what's really going on, lest we dwell here forever. So, even though Assistant Director Williams still technically exists in this lore, I feel like Tom Reed is sort of the weird leftovers reheated version of Williams. A corrupt mole within the agency. And as far as hierarchy goes, this character, Reed, was apparently right under Lambert in the chain of command when Third Echelon was formed. And after 5 games, we're only now just hearing of him. that smells of convenience. Anyway, after Lambert was KIA, Reed took the director's chair and things went south in Third Echelon from there. Sitting president Patricia Caldwell wanted to disband Third Echelon to, save money or something, and well, Reed wasn't having any of that. So Tommy Boy stole a few EMP devices and in the ensuing blackout was going to assassinate Madame Prez and replace her with the corrupt VP Calvin Sampson. Out of several things, a few parts of this plot stand out as particularly foolish. First of all, Reed used Third Echelon agents as well as hired goons from Black Arrow to aid in his takeover. Okay, so the mercs I get, they're doing it for the money, blah blah blah, but the idea that this dude Tom convinced a legion of highly trained Splinter Cell agents to carry out a coup against their own government simply out of loyalty to Tom Reed
is fucking dumb.
If there had been a cutscene of Reed charismatically convincing the agents to get rid of Caldwell, hey fella, she's gonna take away your job. You gonna tell little Billy no Christmas presents this year, huh? I don't know, something. Nope, we have to believe Tom Reed is just that cool. My other big bitch with this story is the presence of Megiddo. Ugh. So if Tom Reed wasn't already a generic James Bond villain, Splinter Cell has its own Spectre now too, apparently. Megiddo is this big, shadowy, global organization. All of a sudden, was this group ever mentioned or alluded to in any prior Splinter Cells? No! Maybe the secret was just that good. So, Megiddo is helping Reed get rid of President Caldwell. She didn't want to play ball with them or something. As an American politician, she's immune to corruption. And I don't really know, because I had to look this up in my own downtime since the game does a terrible job of explaining this. Megiddo is all about vague, implied nonsense. Characters reference them in hushed, fearful tones. During Sam's interrogation of Galliard, he alludes to bigger, scarier forces at play, yada yada, and then gets whacked by a hitman, presumably from Megiddo. The hitman tries to escape, but his car is rigged to blow. I guess Megiddo did that too? And did they expand on this in Splinter Cell 6, known as Blacklist? Nope, because Megiddo is lazily written and stupid. Tom Reed is stupid. Third Echelon is stupid now. A cheapened version of what it once was. And apparently, they only have one decent employee in Grimm. So yeah, let's finish this up. Why is Grimm doing what she's doing? You thought I was done ranting. When we reach Grimm's office in Third Echelon, we find out that Lambert faked Sarah's death. He was worried about the then unknown mole in Third Echelon, Tom Reed, using Sarah against Sam to convince him to join the overthrow, or maybe to stand aside when it went down, I guess. It's all poorly explained and sort of left aside in the old retcon rubber room. So Lambert is wasted, not knowing if his efforts were for naught, with Grimm's daughter stepping in to carry on Lambert's legacy. She takes a role under Tom Reed as one of his loyal agents, all while working in the dark to find Sam and bring him out of hiding to stop Reed's plan. One more gripe about the writing. After all these years of playing this game, I've never understood why Sam goes into such a rage over this revelation. I know, he went through an emotional hell thinking his kid had been taken from him forever. It's every parent's worst nightmare. And now he's finding out that everything was a lie orchestrated by his best friend, a man he was basically forced to assassinate. He's then further manipulated by his former colleague, Grimm, into coming back to work to foil some goofy plot. On top of that, you could argue that going undercover with the JBA, which would be a scary and traumatic experience, was something that happened under the auspices of, my daughter is deceased, I got nothing left to live for anyway, when in fact she was alive. I understand that argument, and I understand how that could weigh on a man's mind, of course. But, dude, Your kid is alive. This is great news. And you weren't betrayed. God, now I'm lecturing a fictional character. But Lambert and Grimm were helping you and protecting Sarah from Reed. Yeah, it stinks about the experience with the JBA and Lambert, but those Cajun tool bags had 3 nukes they were going to detonate on US soil. And you saved the day, my man. You saved millions of people. It wasn't for nothing. A sacrifice Lambert was willing to make. Your buddy died a hero. Now, I understand being a bit overwhelmed and bummed out, but the writing paints Sam Fisher as someone with the emotional maturity of a toddler, like I'm doing right now, throwing a tantrum when it's bath time. What would have made sense is if it turned out that Lambert had Sarah Fisher legitimately whacked to coerce Sam into going undercover with the JBA. He needed to stop them at any cost, even if it meant betraying his best friend. Lambert stops a nuclear catastrophe, but at the cost of his own life and the life of his friend's daughter. Now, that would have been a truly unsettling revelation and worthy of losing your mind over. But no, we gotta deal with old Tommy Tough Knuckles and Grimm's heavy bosom, the latter of which I certainly don't mind. And after everything is revealed and finished, Sam scoffs at Anna's mention of trust. Like, dude, she told you everything. She stopped Reed. She came clean about all the betrayal and the reasons therein, and helped to protect your daughter. She came through for you, big guy, and you're still like, "Durr, I don't know about you." Oh, and one last thing. The escape segment in the airfield, Grimm helps Sam escape, but she needs him to tune her face up a little, to make his breakout look real. Okay, makes sense, but why did this scene need to exist? This conversation could have been had over a radio call. Someone deliberately wanted this. Oh, right. Hey, I tell you what, the story might stink like cheese, but one thing Conviction has always had is amazing visuals. A few of the character models are a little dodgy, but the environments and lighting are incredible, even 16 years later. Put simply, I love looking at this game. The color palette is slightly muted, but it's not washed out or covered in a piss filter. And in places like Malta, with decorative lights, business signs, and the fireworks display over the water, everything just pops. The streets are filled with all kinds of details. Bits of rubbish and cardboard, trees and vines, NPCs having conversations or shopping around. It's genuinely amazing how much juice Ubisoft could squeeze out of the Xbox 360. And this was also just before their promotional trickery era, where the E3 demo looked significantly better than the final product, And, for what it's worth, I've always liked the look of text being projected onto a surface. I prefer the old OpSet, of course, but this is slick. The animation work is simply top tier. Sam's animation set is smooth and buttery. Mantling, sneaking, bashing doors, and takedowns all look fluid and clean. Now, I know these aren't hand-drawn, but everything still looks wonderful in motion. Lighting and shadows have always been a hallmark of Splinter Cell, and every now and then you'll get a nice little dose. The big industrial fan shadow looks amazing, and if you were to catch this image from a glance, it could play a trick on your eyes, really. And although I will always prefer my Splinter Cell in the dark, there's no denying that daytime environments also look phenomenal. The Lincoln Memorial is studded with details and a gorgeous autumn skybox. Same with the DC Plaza. This little area is brimming with so many little objects, and the colors really pop under the daylight. And it's a little holdover from the original Conviction, more on that later. And as I've mentioned in so many of my Splinter Cell videos now, nothing beats a cozy indoor environment with a raging storm outside the windows. It's such a vibe. There are many other examples, but all in all, it's kind of shocking how well this game has aged visually. I mean, 16 years is quite a long time in video games, but Conviction still holds up. The soundtrack is fairly plain Hollywood movie music. It's not a patch on the first 4 games, but there are some highlights along the way. The main menu theme is excellent, and I really love the little pieces like the sound of a distant mallet dipped in reverb that plays from time to time. I also love the audio cues that play when selecting menu options, as odd as that may sound. I also enjoy the way music dynamically shifts as the tension builds. I can't help but compare it to the top-tier work from Amon Tobin, and this soundtrack is not on that level, but the music in Conviction is good for what it is. The weapons are all appropriately poppy and crisp. Nothing sounds weak or out of place. Oh, and on the dialogue, even though I kind of shit on it, I do like sneaking up on bad guys having normal conversations. They'll talk about their boss, their current job, past jobs, and they'll even reference Fisher like he's the boogeyman. When things start to go awry, they become audibly frightened, which is a good concept, and it gives the player the impression that they're a force to be reckoned with, but dude, in my opinion, they just sound like R-rated Batman thugs. These guys are private security, they're not daycare employees, and I understand that, and some of the lines are really funny, I have to say, but some of them are just nonsensical. They'll say things like, "You admiring the paintings?"
What are you doing, Fisher? Admiring the paintings?
I mean, okay. But all told, the audio-visual package in Splinter Cell Conviction really is upper echelon, maybe even third echelon. Moments like standing outside the White House and seeing flashes of gunfire behind the windows while listening to muffled screaming is upsetting and intense, and a much more grim way to convey to the player that, like, hey man, these are the scumbags and you are the difference maker, get in there. It's more effective than, well...
That's it, bitch! Look around, choose your wall. I'll hang you on it!
Okay, Nolan North, that's great. Alright, let's talk about what matters most with the Splinter Cell game. Creeping in the shadows, sneaking by heavily armed thugs, one mistake and it's over, hold your breath, move slowly. Which is why I highly recommend No Sun to Warship. PS1 aesthetics, third-person stealth with modern controls, and a fun, fast, addicting loop. It would have made for a really great PSP game in its day, but hey, it's on Steam now. It's cheap, it's fun, and I recommend you try No Sun to Warship. What, you thought I was talking about Splinter Cell Conviction? Nah man, this is Gears of War with a few shadows. Alright, perhaps there's a little more to it than that. As a matter of fact, I've rarely played a third-person game that felt this good to control. Despite this being a sequel, and Sam Fisher being firmly middle-aged, the guy moves with the grace and strength of an 80-kilo gymnast. It's a stretch of the imagination, but this is a video game after all. Climbing, mantling, and taking cover all feel so natural and smooth, and the default control scheme is crispy and finely tuned. Nobody can tell me that Conviction doesn't play like $1 million. It really does. However, it's absolutely not a Splinter Cell game. Now look, this isn't old dude yelling at clouds. Splinter Cell 1 had its share of forced action segments, and they sucked. The abattoir comes to mind. It wasn't until Splinter Cell 3 where you truly felt like you had absolute control over not only every action that you took, but the choice to end or spare lives. A non-lethal playthrough was not only viable, but it was encouraged via the end of level ratings. And look, I'm not saying only Chaos Theory good, but Conviction is just an action game with some stealth elements. Should be the other way around. And before anyone says, dude, go watch the video of blah blah blah, I've seen them, I know. There are people that EMP, flashbang, and roll through every level. And I love watching those videos, by the way. It's very impressive, but it's absolutely not how the game was designed. A few people can bend the system and pull off tricks to kinda sorta ghost through parts of the game, and that's fantastic. But it's clear that the mechanics were heavily geared towards lethality. And you can say what you want. Oh, it's to emphasize that Sam is off his leash now. Fine, whatever. But it's obviously because Ubisoft was chasing the big third-person cover shooter renaissance of the day. And okay, let's say he is off his leash, but what does that mean? Was Sam Fisher secretly a genocidal lunatic the entire time, just barely being held together by Third Echelon's code of ethics? Was that his leash? Well, great, nothing like a bit of extra character assassination to keep up with trends, hey? And the irony is that Michael Ironside has been quoted as saying that he initially turned down the role of Sam Fisher for the first game because the team wrote him as a two-dimensional killing machine, no humanity. Well, that check for Conviction must have been nice, and good for you. And you know something? If we can get past the whole not really Splinter Cell stuff, this is still a great game mechanically. But the fact remains, this is a Splinter Cell game, or it's supposed to be, and you have to understand how longtime fans would have played this and said, wait, what? The basic goal is to go from point A to B, snuffing out everyone's life along the way. The team wrote in cursing and tough guy lines for the enemy NPCs to make the player feel better about the wanton slaughter. Forget the absolute control and freedom of Chaos Theory. There are no non-lethal takedowns or gadgets for a true ghost run. Yes, you have sticky cameras, flashbangs, and the portable EMP. And once more, I know that some people have their strats. That's great, but everything is geared towards being a butcher. And what sucks more is that there are times when the game gives you non-lethal takedowns for a specific scenario, so we know it was possible. Ubisoft just didn't want us to have it. Oh, I must say, I do like the new light and shadow dynamic. The HUD is basically just whether or not your screen is in color or black and white, the latter indicating that you're hidden. It works much better than the glowing radio light from Double Agent, and is quite stylish to boot. Though I will say, I totally understand why some fans don't like it and will even mod this out. The Chaos Theory HUD will always be the pinnacle of the series, but for my money, this is a clever way to declutter the user interface, and I felt a certain sense of comfort in the shadows of Conviction. I only wish this game had more of a sneaking slant, especially with moments of stealth potential. In the carnival, for instance, you'll find yourself going, right, now we're talking, let's do some Splinter Celling, only to then kill a bunch of dudes in a particularly brutal way. Sam doesn't just use his old 5.7 and knife anymore. He crushes a man's trachea with his bare hands. Now, I know you think your daughter's dead and all, but mate, something tells me you're enjoying this a little too much. The daughter thing might just be an excuse to live out some desires. And listening to some of his gleeful dialogue after viciously hurting someone lends a little bit of credence to that theory.
Nothing a little plastic surgery won't fix.
Granted, You could also sever someone's spinal column with your knee in Chaos Theory. Fair enough, but the key difference is that you could choose to do that or not. And every now and then, you'll get a taste of old Splinter Cell, and it feels good. Third Echelon HQ is a great level. It is odd that the single holdover they chose from the old days was the one alarm and it's over trope, something so unappreciated that Chaos Theory included a meta joke about it. But oh well, it felt really good to have some tension back in the formula. You're not allowed to play this Gears of War style, and for a minute, this almost felt like a Splinter Cell again. Sam even gets his goggles back. Well, sort of. I will always prefer the old gogs, and the new sonar goggles definitely add more credence to the argument that Conviction is way too casual, and it is. Being able to basically wall hack and tag bad guys is terribly simple, but hear me out. I kind of have a soft spot for them. They're slick and hip, and they don't work while you're moving, which I guess was supposed to be the balance. I also really love the sound they make when they're equipped. And like Splinter Cells of old, they get used for specific environments. The original game had the cold rooms of the abattoir, for instance. And ever since Mission Impossible, dodging lasers has become classic spy thriller stuff, and this feels like Splinter Cell. Then there's Iraq. In case you were questioning my bit about Ubisoft chasing trends, there is no better example than the level set in early 90s Iraq. This screams, "Look at our game, Call of Duty, kids!" I wish it was more than that, but no, this is literally just Battlefield Splinter Cell. It's a desperate, generic Michael Bay action level, a stripped-down Ghost Recon stage, and it sucks beyond belief. The big twist is that you've actually been playing as Victor Kost the whole time, out to rescue your teammate, Sam Fisher, despite being told to stand down. The explanation that they're setting up the bond between Sam and Vic is lame, and it's just an excuse to have a stupid, loud Call of Duty level. You sort of sneak up on a few enemies and you might think, hey, I can get some stealth going here, but there are no shadows and the level bottlenecks you into unavoidable enemies and a bunch of shiny red barrels to blow up. Oh good, the game crashed. Really should have taken that as a sign. And how they got these barrels onto this rooftop and for what purpose, I wasn't able to figure out. It's almost like it's lazy game design. The other problem I have with the gameplay in Conviction is that it falls into that early 10s Ubisoft gameplay design of push A to win. Again, I reference Ghost Recon Future Soldier, where you could simply tag enemies with your invisible drone and hit one button for your teammates to execute a synchronous kill. Snooze fest. And once more, I'll say the movement, cover, and shooting all feel smooth as butter in Splinter Cell Conviction. I really love the roll maneuver in particular, and I wish they hadn't taken it out of Blacklist. I love pulling dudes over ledges and chucking them through window panes and so forth, but it all just feels so easy. It's hard to pinpoint, but the game just feels automated. Even on realistic difficulty, which is how you should play, I never really struggled. Health is minimal and it takes a long time to regenerate, which definitely raises the stakes, and you do die quickly. But the old games required a bit of patience and experimentation to get good at. True, the trial and error gameplay could be very frustrating. I'm not rose-tinted glasses. Some parts of old Splinter Cell games are garbage. But finally executing a flawless stealth run felt like a true achievement. In Conviction, I know I can just push A and everything will be okay. Also, side note, it's annoying just how many commands got mapped to A. Picking up items, opening doors, climbing, etc. Anyway, Conviction did introduce some pretty flashy new mechanics to aid in the Panther style of gameplay, and I'll say over and over, even though I will always prefer the pure stealth option, the new mechanics here are pretty good. One of those is last known position. So say you're in a fight and you need to take off. A silhouette of Fisher remains on screen to indicate that this is where the enemies still think you are, allowing you to plot out a little flanking maneuver. It's pretty neat, and again, another clever way to give the player awareness without cluttering the screen. There are also parts of the environment that Sam can use to wipe out a group of bad guys or to cause a distraction with. And hey, it's always a good time dropping big stuff on NPCs. I can't complain too much, but it's funny because this mechanic feels like it was lifted straight from the Hitman series, which ironically would go on to bite off the next mechanic for its 2012 entry, Absolution. That is to say, the mark and execute feature. So if Sam gets a melee takedown, he gets what amounts to a mark and execute token, and depending on the weapon you have equipped, you can tag a small number of enemies. A chevron will appear above their heads indicating as much. If the chevron is gray, you don't have a shot. If it's red, you simply press a button and Sam automatically takes out every tagged enemy. Mark and Execute is the greatest example of that automated gameplay feeling I had mentioned. It looks awesome, don't get me wrong. Sam does his cute little center axis relock thing and rotates around hitting shots that would be nearly impossible, and taking out 3 or 4 baddies in one fell swoop gives you that power fantasy and all of that stuff, but it takes absolutely no skill. Again, back to that instant win button. Now look, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I used it all the time because it's there, and frankly, sometimes I just wanted to get on to the next batch of generic thugs as quickly as I could. But there's no doubt that Mark and Execute is an easy mode button. It's meant to look cool in trailers and appeal to the masses. And hey, to be fair, it worked. A lot of people were new to Splinter Cell when Conviction released, and it does make the game look cool and flashy. And I know that a lot of people really love playing Conviction to this day. So I'm not saying that I'm right and you're wrong. Your taste is your taste, but you gotta understand where I'm coming from. Splinter Cell did so well for what it was, and the formula was perfected in the third game, Chaos Theory. The fourth game, Double Agent, came along, and we all said, wait, no, you're going backwards. Conviction came along in a truck, ran over the old games, and said, hey, did you feel a bump just now? Again, it's not a bad game, but by the end of it, I was just over it, you know? Wave after wave of faceless thugs just getting swarmed, playing a watered down Gears of War. I kept checking my phone, you know what I mean? Thinking about what else I had to do that day. But as I say, I don't want this review to just be bashing the game. The third person mechanics feel good, I have to give it that. I wish they had retained the frame by frame gate cycle from Chaos Theory, but bounding from cover to cover is reliable, and being able to cancel mid-animation gives the player much more ownership over their movements. The weapon selection is good, and the weapon stash feature is pretty cool too. You can use points to upgrade weapons and gear that you've acquired. And this is nice because it was just before the wave of mobile-inspired predatory nickel and diming that carries on to this day. Anyway, the weapon stash is cool, and it's always nice to play around with a toy box, right? There's one last gameplay element to discuss before moving on, and that's the interrogations. I remember very, very clearly the first time Conviction's final build was shown to the public, because it was this segment. Look, man, the initial interrogation is pretty cool at first. It's proper violent, and the various ways in which Sam can bash this fellow was kinda neat the first time. It seems very heavily borrowed from the Volition Punisher game, as well as the opening of Casino Royale, but regardless. The problem is, yet again, this is more of that push A to win stuff. In this case, B, but you know, There are no skill checks, there's no technique, no reward for being good, no punishment for doing poorly. You just grab this big dum-dum and walk him around, breaking urinals with his head somehow. You do this 3 times, and you win. That's it. The animations and sound effects sell the crunchy impact, and the acting is good. And I kind of like the story being projected over the scene at hand. And as a marketing technique, this scene was pretty smart, but it's just it's boring after a while, you know? And they do it over and over again. Interrogate Coben, bash, 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 win. Interrogate Grimm, smash, smash, smash. I wish I could. Maxime, you dog. Look, Sam's getting interrogated. And look, listening to 2 boring characters talk for 5 minutes. Why have the directional mic when you can fall asleep doing this? Oh, I almost forgot. Bash, bash, bash. And it's hilarious how you can bend a rail and break a CRT TV with a man's skull, and then he just goes, anyway, as I was saying. Right. Interrogating Coben again. Yay. And another one. Bash, bash, bash. Oh, and don't forget the vice president, though I have to say I do like this one. The guy brags about being bulletproof, and then, well...
A damn bulletproof here.
Oh, really?
Oh, you shot me! Oh!
You know, you need to work on that whole
Son of a
bulletproof thing.
bitch!
In the end, Sam carries out, you guessed it, a final interrogation on Reed. You can let him win, which is actually kind of funny. You can take the high road, but Grimm has your back. Or you can do what you probably want to do after 8 hours of this boundless slaughter. Dump this goof and move on. So before I go, I should bring up Deniable Ops and the cooperative campaign. Deniable Ops is a challenge mode separate from Sam Fisher's campaign. It's like the Batman Predator challenge rooms, essentially. You can play as either Archer or Kestrel, both of whom can be equipped with different loadouts and outfits, which is a, nice little touch. It would have been cool to have a special unlockable character like Voss or Ezio, but that's me fanboy dreaming. There are 2 modes, Hunter and Last Stand. Hunter is like Tarot Hunt in Rainbow Six. Just work your way through environments taking out the bad guys. If you play Stealthy, you deal with less enemies. If you're caught, they'll call in reinforcements. And then you have Last Stand, where you defend an EMP generator against waves of bad guys. Now, even though I bashed the whole constant murder thing for the main Splinter Cell campaign, well, in Deniable Ops, the gameplay really gets to shine, and you're not constrained by any weird characters and messy retcons. You're just a random agent dropped into a sandbox and told to have fun. And Deniable Ops is definitely a good time. There are a fair few maps out of the box, with 4 more if you purchase the Insurgency Pack DLC. It's a silly name, but the maps are great and honestly worth the money. And really, all of the maps are good. Each has its own unique flair, and they all feel like big jungle gyms to flex your skills in. Now granted, several of them are straight from the cooperative campaign, but that doesn't make them any less enjoyable, of course. And with the ability to customize your equipment as well as a few match parameters, there's also quite a bit of replay value here too. Frankly, I would say that if you find the gameplay of Splinter Cell Conviction fascinating at all, Deniable Ops is worth buying this game for. It's that good. And then you get an entire cooperative campaign too. The story in co-op isn't complex, but it didn't need to be. It's set 10 days before the events of the main campaign. Some Russian organization is suspected of stealing warheads and attempting to sell them on the black market. You and a mate step into the boots of Archer, an American agent from Third Echelon, and Kestrel, a Russian agent from Voron. Your mission is to stop the bad guys, yada yada. As I say, it's not too terribly complicated, but the characters of Archer and Kestrel are a draw. I love the idea of uneasy bedfellows. It's what drew me to Kane and Lynch back in the day. Having Agent Kestrel as the hometown boy, trying to maintain regional stability for his motherland while this American dude cooperates, presumably keeping an eye on him, is a great dynamic. And I love listening to Kestrel address Archer's cynicism and paranoia while describing parts of Moscow and the underground regimes therein. It's like a tour guide while you're snapping necks. And the whole thing culminates in a really great twist ending that a certain prison-based co-op game some years later definitely ripped off. It was surprisingly well done, considering the rest of the plot-related elements in Splinter Cell Conviction are about as deep as a puddle. I digress. This is, without a doubt, one of the best co-op campaigns I've ever played. Ever since the absolutely brilliant two-player mode in Chaos Theory, Splinter Cell and co-op go together like peanut butter and jelly, and Conviction did not break that tradition. The smooth gameplay and features like dual mark and execute flow so well between a two-person team. But do you know what the most peculiar part of Splinter Cell Conviction is? It's that it almost wasn't any of this at one point. I wanted to save this for the end because I thought presenting what Splinter Cell Conviction is would juxtapose well against what it almost was. You see, thanks to my younger brother, I've been a fan of this series since the first game, and I followed every title thereafter closely before release, and that was certainly no different with Splinter Cell 5. Double Agent, the fourth game, was the point at which some people felt like the series was becoming stale and needed a mix-up. Of course, we all know now that they really should have just leaned harder into the Chaos Theory direction, but perhaps it was time for some changes to the formula. And what Ubisoft showed off in May of 2007 was, well, it was a change, that's for certain. Wait, 2007? I thought Conviction launched in 2010. Ha, yeah, about that. This was the original vision for Splinter Cell 5. Sam was on the run, but attempting to blend in much more. Instead of the short hair and Matt Damon sweater, Sam initially had the shaggy hair and beard plus black coat look. Now, for what it's worth, I always thought Hobo Sam was a cool model, and I assume he would have cleaned up later in the story. The gameplay was a bit closer to Assassin's Creed, where Sam used social stealth to blend in, to hide in plain sight, you know. Even though any game that lets you hide in tall grass is now considered stealth, in 2007, the idea of melding into a crowd was new and exciting. Of note, the first Assassin's Creed released in 2007, and only in games like Hitman had this concept been done well previously. Sam could fight with nearly anything in his environment, and the animations and physics looked amazing. I think what may have happened is a wee bit of overscope. Now, that's purely speculative on my part, but it always seemed to me like the team at Ubisoft were being just a tad too ambitious. What with the procedural animations for every object and enemy interaction. So, I think the team eventually realized that maybe it was time to scale back and simplify a little bit if they didn't want to be working on this game for another 5 years. And by the time the team reset, the super violent third-person craze was in full swing, and that reflects in the Conviction we eventually got. Would the original idea have worked? Maybe. The concept sounds great and all, but a series like Splinter Cell has always been so much better as a linear game with miniature sandboxes and some alternate pathways, which, by the way, is what a lot of the final Conviction had, to a degree, and it worked well. Besides, if the social stealth was anything like Assassin's Creed, it wasn't going to be anything mind-blowing in the end. You stand in a group and your safety ring appears. Listen to me, critiquing Ubisoft for being too lofty, aiming too high. I'd give nearly anything to have that Ubisoft back. Modern day Ubi is constantly, rightly being mocked for their copy and paste open world boredom simulators. But man, I'll tell you, I would love to try the beta version for the original Conviction. It'll always have a special place in my heart. I read the Game Informer issue it was featured in many times, and what it could have been will be an everlasting dream. All I want before it's too late is one more really great Splinter Cell game. The type where we slip into inky black shadows and slip right by an unsuspecting mercenary or soldier, leaving no trace. And in the era of remakes, remasters, and soft reboots, it's honestly unbelievable that Splinter Cell has been missing the boat. Yeah, there's that Netflix show and the mysterious remake, which apparently is still a thing, but it's a little disconcerting that the only thing we know about that is that it's not officially canceled yet. It really truly sucks that all we've seen of Sam Fisher in the last, 13 years is the occasional cameo and a character slot in the skin machine that used to be Rainbow Six. Fuck off. My point is, all we have left are the old games, and as such, I've really warmed to Conviction a bit over the years. I made my feelings clear. I wish this was less of a Michael Myers simulator, but hey, it's still a completely playable, fun, and technically impressive game. Is Splinter Cell Conviction a true Splinter Cell game? Well, it's a very dumbed down version of the formula, and of course it could never hold a candle to the series' best. And I'll never understand how Ubisoft bottled such lightning with Chaos Theory and then decided, nah, we've had enough of that. But if you get past the somewhat hokey story and lack of a true Ghost playstyle option, there's an immense amount of fun to be had here. Deniable Ops is a fantastic mode. The co-op campaign is a great time, and the campaign has plenty of silly goodness to chuckle at. And hey, you get to kneecap a corrupt politician.
Whatever his name is.
But everything else aside, this was also the final time Michael Ironside went into the booth for his last full session as the iconic Sam Fisher. The guy's not going to be around forever, you know? Then again, none of us are. So instead of spending the rest of my time being mad at Conviction for not being a true Splinter Cell, I'll just enjoy it for what it was.
Motherfucker, it's always skill. There is no such thing as luck, Harry Joe. When I play a game, it's always skill, and it's always a good time. God damn it!